Dynasty the king.
If you are still listening at this point of the season, undoubtedly there's a little bit of fatigue. It has been a long fantasy season, and tonight marked the very beginning of the very end. It is championship week. Listen, we hope that most of our listeners, at least 50%, are in a championship. But
I sure hope so.
Yeah, I am in my auction league. You're in a league that we play together, an old redraft league. But it's hard to make the playoffs. I think it's especially hard in Dynasty when you have teams that decide, hey, I've got to embrace a rebuild, things of that nature. But man, oh man, you thought if any team should have embraced the rebuild, this is maybe a Dynasty lesson from a real-life fantasy team. If you're the Cleveland Browns and you lose your record-breaking guaranteed money quarterback, you lose a top 5 running back to, in Nick Chubb in the NFL in real life. Also, tonight, you're down Amari Cooper. You lose your wide receiver 2 in Elijah Moore. This is a team that absolutely should be nowhere near the playoffs. And tonight, on the Thursday Night Football finale, the Cleveland Browns punched their ticket for a playoff appearance with Joe Flacco coming out of the woodwork and playing perhaps the best AFC North football he ever has, including obviously his time as a Raven. 309 and 3 through the air. His number one target being David Njoku. Dylan, if you're still watching football for fantasy purposes, you're in a championship. Aren't you playing up against David Njoku in places?
Two different leagues I'm playing against David Njoku. And I have him in one league that I'm no longer competing in. But, I mean, it's bittersweet to see. But, honestly, Joe Flacco is so impressive. I mean, at the half, I think he was pushing that 300-yard line.
296.
296.
Yeah.
So the second half was a little bit, I mean, altogether.
Yeah, they're just parking the bus at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that he can support 265 from Amari Cooper last week.
Yep.
This week, and Njoku had a pretty good game. This week comes out, and Njoku had
6 for 134.
Yeah. And then Elijah Moore's producing. I mean, what is it that Joe Flacco has that Deshaun Watson didn't or doesn't?
Is this a conversation about Joe Flacco being impressive, or is this a conversation about how disappointing really is Deshaun Watson in that offense? How rusty really is Deshaun Watson in the offense? Was he relying on his youth and athleticism in Houston to make unscripted plays, and that's why he was always good for fantasy? Because he had his best half of football before he injured himself and ended his season, but Deshaun Watson never showed the poise or the presence that Joe Flacco has shown through 3 games in playing within the offense. The Browns are not just scary, to make the playoffs in real life. Forgive me, I should say this. The Browns are legitimately scary, in my opinion, in the actual NFL playoffs. And it's funny because there's a team in Cartel that we play in together that lost Justin Herbert. And if you're the Browns, you lose Deshaun Watson. In my mind, if I'm an NFL GM, I'm like, okay, rebuild again. But no, they double down. They go find a Joe Flacco, and like many fantasy teams have, and decide to make a push. And so Joe Flacco leading the Browns. Listen, we're not here to talk simply about what the Browns can do, but for fantasy purposes, to see what all of the weapons are capable with just a competent 38-year-old quarterback. To me, this hurts Deshaun Watson's value and my expectations of him.
Well, does it though? Here's the thing. You're seeing Joe Flacco do it. It's obvious as much money as they paid Deshaun Watson. He's not going anywhere.
Correct.
And he's not getting benched. So as soon as you can't bench him.
I would have said the same thing about Russell Wilson. I would have said the exact same thing.
We're talking about record-breaking money. They bet
for guaranteed
everything, everything on Deshaun Watson. They're not going to bench him.
No,
so starting next season,
but he's in the hot seat. He'll be in the hot seat.
He'll be in the hot seat.
Yeah.
I wasn't, as you know, when we started Cartel, which was a startup this past offseason, I passed up on Deshaun Watson
in the second round. Yeah, I thought you were foolish.
Travis Kelce in a super flex.
You traded him away.
Traded him away, but I had Patrick Mahomes as well. The reason why I did that is because I didn't really believe in Deshaun Watson, and I still am not super high on him. But I'm just wondering, you've seen Joe Flacco do it. Is it possible? Is it possible that Deshaun Watson shaking off the rust? Joe Flacco had enough time in the NFL as a starter, proved himself. I understand he's coming off the bench, but he played last year in New York for the Jets, where he looked good there as well. He is a pro quarterback. That is what Joe Flacco is.
Do you remember when Nick Foles stole the playoff run from Carson Wentz? and literally ruined Carson Wentz. Like, it ruined his career.
Oh, no.
That's the vibe I get if the Browns make a deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think they could, because that defense is elite. And that
I
offense.
tried to play devil's advocate, but if
Yeah,
I'm being
no,
completely honest, I just don't.
Yeah, I'm saying if you have Deshaun Watson,
Hold.
sell. Sell.
What are you
into
selling
the
him for?
offseason.
What are you selling him for? Like,
In the offseason, if you can move off him for a first-round pick of any type, I would do it.
If you can get a first-round pick,
yeah,
absolutely.
sell the idea of
I just
Flacco.
don't
You know, he
know.
just needs more time. Look, the offense got better throughout the year, whatever.
Well, we haven't talked about the rookie draft a whole lot, or the rookie class a whole lot, like the next year's rookie class.
We'll get to that.
But if you can get a first, I don't know who's giving. Like, are you passing up on any of the first-round quarterbacks this year for Deshaun Watson?
There's quarterback needy teams out there. And I think a mid to late first, I would rather, if I had
But if you're a contender, because
if I had
it's
a
a mid to
plethora
late,
first, yeah.
you're a contender. If you were a contender and you made it this far without Deshaun Watson,
yeah.
Do you really want to?
If it's the 107 or further back, I would trade it. Yeah, I really would.
Okay.
Because as you said, record-breaking money, he's most likely not going anywhere.
That's
So,
true, yeah.
Moving to the Jets just very quickly. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall has been a superstar in the fantasy football playoffs. He had another great game, 13 for 84 on the ground. He was gashing them. More importantly, and we've seen this over the last 2 games, 9 for 42 through the air. He had a ton of receptions again last week. Breece Hall, you said it, we were watching the game together. Always a pleasure, by the way. Back in studio, we didn't even mention it. If you're watching
we completely bypassed that.
If you're on YouTube, obviously you can see us in the same room, la-ti-da. But if you're audio only, Dylan and I, both in San Diego, in studio together, just a pleasure to be in person as always. 15 years of friendship. Never gets old, man.
Mm-hmm.
Never gets old.
Never. It's
But
good times.
yeah, except when we're, bro, my age is hitting me today. My age is.
Yeah, this dude, I don't even know, his brain's rotting. He spelled Puka Nakua with 2 C's. Puka Nakua.
I think that's a lot more funny to you. Like, I put that in
I
the
know
show
our
doc.
producers are laughing. We can't see them, but you know they're laughing
Yeah,
too.
but anyone listening is like, who cares? Like, he spelled it with 2 C's.
Because you said Puka Nakua.
I didn't say that. I didn't pronounce it
That's
like
how
that.
it's said if you spell it. If
my
you say
Lord.
it how you spelled it, it's Puka Nakua.
You're a child. You're a child.
I am a child.
Never gets old, 15 years of friendship, and 5th grade. Here we go. Your spelling stinks. What a loser. Anyway.
Breece Hall, yes. I know.
Does he belong? I think you made mention of it. Obviously, we're building a league specifically for the Dynasty Exchange, giving people an incredible case study. If you're on the clock and you have your choice between CMC, Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Breece Hall, which running back are you taking? Has the end of this season proven to you that despite a super negative offense, a super negative situation, that Breece Hall is kind of offense proof and he's going to be a fantasy superstar no matter what? You said you might take him above those guys. Am I misquoting you?
No, I think that's accurate. I would probably take Breece Hall as RB1 off the board. It would be tough if it's a startup to do it over CMC because the only thing is you have to bake in age for CMC. But if you're drafting and you're playing a 2 to 3 year window for Dynasty, CMC's not a bad. He hasn't shown any signs of slowing down.
Also, in a super flex, you're not taking your running back first, so the rest of your draft might determine. Okay,
Exactly.
hey, I have a window. Hey, I
But
don't.
if we're just talking strictly just face value, it would be between Breece and CMC for me. I'm not ready to put Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan there yet. I think
Bijan was already there for many people.
I know that's part of the issue, but I think Breece is above Bijan for me for sure. And I think that could be a spicy take. I don't know how many people are actually doing that.
I think
it might recency bias maybe.
It might feel like splitting hairs, but I think it's important to ask the question of what if this offense gets really good? What if the scoring opportunities increase? I made mention of it. If you remember Todd Gurley, after a great rookie year, there were those years with Jeff Fisher where it was like, this guy is in a horrible situation with a horrible offensive line, and you know he's a great player, but you need the offense to get better.
Question.
Sean McVay gets there, Breece Hall to the moon.
Yeah. Question.
Answer.
Who's in a better offensive situation, Bijan or Breece Hall?
Bijan. Or not Bijan, I'm sorry, Breece. I meant Breece.
Better offensive situation?
Yeah, because Breece is the clear bell cow. He's not going to get sniped from a Tyler Algier. And the quarterback is figured out even though he was injured. Quarterback injury can happen to either team. But Aaron Rodgers on the Jets is currently better than Taylor Heineke or Desmond Ridder or blank on the Falcons. And there's probably questions around Arthur Smith as well. So I know what I'm getting with Breece.
I mean, right now, Breece is RB8 on the season. Mm-hmm. Bijan, I believe, is RB12.
Yep.
It's tough because we saw last year Breece was kind of splitting early on. Yeah. Obviously, he tore his ACL.
Right.
But early on, he was splitting with Michael Carter. But we saw that gap begin to widen. We haven't seen that with Tyler Algier and Bijan.
No, and I think Tyler Algier is there to
lingers.
Stay. Yeah,
he just lingers.
And he's a good back.
And maybe that's just an Arthur Smith thing, but I think you have to bake that in when you're thinking, okay, you're getting your choice of CMC, Breece Hall, Bijan, Gibbs. You have to bake that in. Bijan may be at the bottom of that list for me.
Volume multiplied by opportunities. Speaking of rookies, we're going to be talking all about them in just one moment. We're going to be doing a rookie redraft tonight. We've waited all season. We wanted to do this episode multiple times, and Mike wisely was like, hey, man, it's a great idea for an episode. Obviously, a lot of people are going to do it, but you should wait until the season kind of concludes. This is the fantasy play championships. It's almost there. On. I wasn't ready to, but
I had a thought.
Love when you have
rank those 4 running backs for me? Bijan, Gibbs,
for dynasty purposes,
Breece Hall, CMC.
I don't want to spoil anything. I'm going over a little bit of that in my rookie draft. I mean,
okay, fair.
Yeah, I'll get to that. I'll answer your question, but later.
Through the draft. Okay.
Really quickly, before we do move on and take a quick commercial break, Garrett Wilson 5 for 50. Are you worried about his dynasty value? Has the window passed?
I said it to you in the game.
Yeah,
the dude is so good. Like Garrett Wilson to me passes the eye test. He's a great wide receiver. I just think, he's dealing with Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian. Like it's garbage. But the dude looks good. I don't. Once Aaron Rodgers is back, his value will go up. And I think even if Devontae Adams gets there, I think it limits him from being like, in the offseason how he was being perceived as like wide
top
receiver
3,
4 or 5. Yeah. So, yes, some cases 3. I don't know that he'll be that, but I do think he is a wide receiver 1 in Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, he's a super talented guy. His game translates for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
He's an incredible route runner, very, very fast as well. So not worried about Garrett Wilson. I need to have
10
more
targets. He had 10 targets.
Yeah, no, the targets have always been there.
It's just garbage targets.
That's what I'm saying. I would rather give him 7 targets a game with single coverage because Devontae Adams is on the other side of the field. It doesn't hurt him. I need to get more excited because we have got the rookie redraft coming up.
So hyped.
Right after this. Stay tuned. Dylan, I'm glad we had a chance to take a break because I needed to take a sip of coffee because you know what? Even though this is the second to last show we're going to have on season 1 of the Dynasty Exchange, it's a blessing to be here, man.
Absolutely.
It's been a long season, lots of journeys, the up and downs of players like George Pickens, Justin Fields, Jordan Love, for you, Nico Collins, Will Levis, kind of at the later end of the year.
Notice how he led with George Pickens.
I led with my guys, my team, my peoples. You know what I mean?
Jordan Love. Yes, it has been a great season.
It's been a great season, and we're excited to keep going. But it's fun to take a look back. And something we were always looking forward to with this show was, hey, from a player's perspective, not just consensus ADP, not just public, expert rankings, things like that. In leagues you play in where personalities are going to affect the way people draft, going to affect the way people value players. How does the gamesmanship change? How does the advice change? So what we did is we've pulled the actual draft from Dynasty Cartel, serving as our league of record for now. Going to be building a new one, and we're very, very excited about that. But we pulled the actual rookie draft from Cartel, and then we redid a rookie draft with Dylan taking the 101, I took the 102, Dylan the 103, etc. We may not agree on all of the new ADP for some of these players, but we're excited to get into it. In our actual draft at the 101, and this was no surprise because every single league, super flex or no, Bijan Robinson was the belle of the ball. Bijan Robinson was situation proof. And before we get into who should be the 101, and we're going to be talking about Bijan later, obviously, because he's still a first-round player. And by the way, we're only redrafting the first round. We're not touching all the way into the second, even though we may flirt with kind of the end of the first.
Unless you guys want to be here for 2.5 hours.
I mean, I would love to get into the weeds on whether or not Deuce Vaughn deserves to be in the 3rd or 4th
Deuce
round.
Vaughn, that would be.
I love Deuce Vaughn.
That would be a waiver wire pickup after
at this point. Yes, but he's special to me. He had a great preseason.
Yes.
The fall off of Tanks Bigsby and others. But Bijan, it's just interesting that 101s can bust horribly. N'Keal Harry, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, those guys come to mind. Bijan no longer being the 101 in our minds, spoiler alert, does not mean he's a bust overall long-term. It just means that there is no player that is situation-proof, I think is really the takeaway, and we'll talk about him more later. But a player we didn't think was going into a very good situation, didn't have the weapons around him, but for Superflex turned out to be a breath of fresh air, is already the quarterback for your pick at the top of the draft, Dylan. With the 101, you take and select
Bryce. No, I'm kidding. It's not Bryce Young.
That would all of our people turned off the show.
I know.
Right there.
As soon as they heard, they're like, these dudes don't know what to talk about. No, it's going to be CJ Stroud. QB 14 on the season. Dude's missed 2 games. 2 in, I won't say it wasn't a half of the game, but he got knocked out early.
Yeah, you can't count that against him. I would call that 3 games.
So 3 games,
mm-hmm.
and he's still QB 14. I remember a conversation we had earlier in the season when I was talking about CJ Stroud, and I started to see this come together, like I do on film and watching the game, and I'm like, this dude is good. This dude is going to be good. At the time, I think it may have been week 3 or week 4.
He had an impressive yardage game. He threw for like almost 500.
Yeah, it was earlier on in the season. Oh, that's right. It was the game where he threw for 390 or 384. It was week 2.
And it was it like one touchdown though?
It was no touchdown.
Yeah,
or 2 touchdowns. I'm sorry, 2 touchdowns. He threw 2 touchdowns, but that was the problem. Is we were like, oh,
the touchdowns aren't going to come. Yeah,
and then boom, he goes off 5 touchdown game in week 9, 470. Then goes for 356 in next week, 336, and then just goes on a roll. Right, we start to see what we thought. Well, what we started to see come to fruition consistently. And to me, it's unquestioned that he is the 101 in any draft. If we redo the rookie draft today, he's the 101. You're not taking Bijan. You're not taking Bryce. I love me some A-Rich, but I'm not taking A-Rich.
I don't think Bryce belongs in the first round, but we'll get to him later.
That's debatable. I think there's a lot of people that would agree with you, but I think CJ Stroud is the 101. You've seen what he can do with – we saw what Nico Collins was last year.
Yeah.
Not
many people paid attention to Nico Collins.
No, not very many people did at
Save
all.
you, yeah.
Right, yes. But then he add in CJ Stroud. Noah Brown. Who was Noah Brown in Dallas?
A wide receiver. He had 1 or 2 good games.
And Noah Brown's a good wide receiver. I'm not saying these guys are bad, but you just see that I bring up that truck and trailer analogy, right? CJ Stroud is a truck. You can put any wide receiver in that offense. He's going to elevate the pieces around him. And I just think if I'm the 101, let's say because I'm the worst team in the league legitimately, not because I traded for it, I want to build my franchise and rebuild it around CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I think what was crazy about the CJ Stroud conversation is very rarely do you get the piece that's going to help you rebuild at the quarterback position, but he also will help you compete right away. Yeah. The statistic I brought up in week 3 was how rare it was for quarterbacks to finish in the top 15 for fantasy purposes. And since 2000, only 2 had done it in Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray. CJ Stroud can hang on. I think it sucks that it's injury, but it really is so hard for rookie quarterbacks to break through the fantasy ceiling. It's just difficult. It's hard to be fantasy relevant right away. It's hard to throw touchdowns. At first, Stroud had the yardage and not the touchdowns, and then the touchdowns started to come. You've already mentioned it. He elevates every piece around him. He's a franchise guy for the Texans and is going to be for quite some time. Already the quarterback 4 on keep trade cut. And you're splitting hairs to move him up or move him down from that ranking. It's more than well deserved. Yes. He can beat you a multitude of ways. I will say, while I was not as high on his outcome this quickly, him being this successful, but coming into the draft, I was like, this is my 101 at the QB position. I didn't have him at the 101 overall, but hey, everyone likes to be right. And, I believed in that player. And
a lot of this is because A-Rich, for me, hasn't played, right? There's still a chance that A-Rich could be
get to A-Rich
better. But
for fantasy purposes, because of the rushing. But I'll let you touch on that at the 103, because at the 102, I do believe that rookie running backs are special. I do believe that rookie running backs are essential to your dynasty structure because they're at their peak value their rookie season. And someone who didn't disappoint. He started the season very slow, but here's what I have to say about the 102 Jahmyr Gibbs. This is Alvin Kamara reincarnate. Fun fact, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, both incredibly fantasy relevant in Alvin Kamara's early years. And Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram could both be fantasy relevant. Mark Ingram more as an RB2 moving down the line. You know who was with the Saints during that time? Head coach Dan Campbell. The usage for Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, what makes Gibbs special? His speed. What made Kamara and still makes Kamara special? His balance and vision. Both have great vision, but it looks different. I'm not saying he's a complete comp to Kamara based on the way he plays. I'm talking about the situation in which he plays in. An excellent offense, lots of scoring opportunities, and it doesn't matter that there's a great running back there. Other great running back here. Heck, it might help him because it keeps him fresh, lets him come in and dominate on limited touches. This is an explosive player. He's the RB6 on the year already. On keep trade cut, he is the RB3. I don't think you're going to get a better value at a running back that helps you compete right away and is so young is going to help you,
Did you
penciled
see
in for 3 to 4 years.
Did you see the play where he just completely banished that DB to the gulag against Minnesota? Bro,
he has some crazy cutbacks.
The guy literally just
I love you play Call of Duty these days, you're putting people in the gulag. So what you're doing?
I haven't touched Call of Duty in years.
Yeah,
I've heard it referenced, so I just said it. It sounded cool.
But also, just if you think of the ceiling, he started the season running back 36 on the week, running back 24, running back 23, running back 29. Where I had shares of him, I was trying to move him. I really was. People wouldn't do it.
Aren't you glad you didn't?
Missed 2 games with injury. I was like, oh boy. Then running back 3, running back 2, running back 2, running back 7, running back 25, running back 30, running back 14, running back 3 the last 2 weeks. Gibbs is a bell cow running back you can build around for the future, has that passing upside. He's game script proof. And like I said, David Montgomery doesn't bother me. Heck, it makes me think this guy isn't volume dependent. That offense is going to – listen, you could maybe replace Jared Goff, whether he gets a long-term contract or not. I trust what the Lions have built on the offensive line. It's the safest. This pick at the 1 and 2 is also based on kind of the safety. Elite running backs are hard to find, and I just think the situation is incredibly safe. Health is health. Any player can get injured, but Gibbs is a guy.
I was very sluggish on buying into Gibbs. I thought he was an incredible talent coming out of Alabama.
Totally.
I just thought the situation going into Detroit, seeing how it was early on, I was like, it seemed like he was getting DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift did.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I was a little nervous. I was like, is anything actually going to change?
First 4 weeks looks that way completely.
But I knew that him and Devon Achane, we've talked about, are very similar in the sense of they don't need a lot of touches.
No.
They just need touches and just let them get into space. And that's exactly what they're doing, Jahmyr Gibbs. Mm-hmm. Even though David Montgomery's there, David Montgomery's still a good back. David Montgomery's still sniping him at certain points. Yeah. But they're starting to trust Jahmyr Gibbs even more. And seeing him come on at the end of the season, I don't hate that he's this high. I probably wouldn't have taken him in a super flex league at 102. But I also wouldn't argue because Bijan going 101 like from the onset.
Gibbs is doing what Bijan was supposed to do.
You
know what I mean? When the floor is RB6 on the season, sure. And by the way, he's been electric in playoffs. He's come on late in the season, which is what you love to see.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, man.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, all I was going to say as well is that with Jahmyr, you get the benefit of knowing, hey, I don't have to rely on volume. I've already said it. Like efficient on the touches. You've talked about that with Achane, but with Jahmyr, it's like, hey, this is a team that's going to be competing. The Lions, I mean, I know the Dolphins are good as well, but Jahmyr was also drafted in the first round with the similar capital.
Dolphins offense is a little different. Achane lucked out.
No, he did. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Whereas Gibbs was, they built this offense around, not Gibbs specifically, but around the ground game and drafted Gibbs to be a huge part of that. So he's a part of their future plans, the draft capital. It's just a rare combination of all the things you want to see. It's as safe of a pick as you can make it the 102 in my opinion.
How many yards do you think he's averaging per carry? Because remember at the beginning of the season, we had a show, an episode where I talked about like yards per carry, and I said, like the yards per carry you want to see from a running back that would be ideal is like four yards per carry.
At least,
at least, right? What do you think Jahmyr gives?
Right now, he's probably like 5.5.
5.6. 5.66. Great guess, but I mean that's incredible.
I had to pay attention to a few.
And I think that is actually realistic and sustainable for Jahmyr Gibbs. That's not like an outlandish like 8 yards per carry that's being averaged by a running back. Like 5.66 and the way that he's running the ball and the touches that he gets, I think that's actually reasonable to stay.
No, I'm a big fan, and he's gotten a lot more carries as the season has gone on. He just had 15 with David Montgomery is the most he's had with Montgomery. He had 26 when Montgomery was out. But moving on to the 103, Dylan, I disagree with this pick, and I'll share why later. But get into your boy, like
my boy,
the QB1 for you coming into which, by the way, didn't sound stupid at all at the time.
No, and I still don't think it's stupid. I really don't. I think. To me, we're talking about Anthony Richardson, by the way. I would have taken Anthony Richardson over Jahmyr Gibbs. Still, to this day, I would have taken Anthony Richardson in a super flex league over Jahmyr Gibbs because of what I believe he can be. And I don't think this injury sets him back.
Let me pause.
Much at all.
Is this different if you're going back in time and making the rookie pick, or are we just saying startup from now moving forward? Because I think they're different. Imagine you could go back in time and you know the season you're getting. You have to take
injury, obviously.
That's
I don't think
knowing
that's fair.
Doesn't it change though? It's maybe not helpful.
I mean, sure, of course you're going to take the player that's healthy all season, but I'm saying like if I could. So let's take. What if we could just take what they were doing and project that out?
I mean, that's a dangerous thing to do. If I take George Pickens' last game, best wide receiver
he
ever.
literally goes back to the well. George Pickens. We literally talked about
I was not going to make mention of it.
We talked about this before the show for legitimate.
I was finally admitting that I was moving off of him. And
no, you were not.
I was last show with Chris. You could hear it. I totally was.
This dude loves George Pickens. Anyways, I'm going to talk about Anthony Richardson.
Please do.
My first love. I shouldn't say that. My wife was my first love. My second love is Anthony Richardson.
Known you a long time.
Anthony Richardson to me is the 103, arguably to me actually the 102, because A, he's a quarterback. B, we saw what he did at the beginning of the season with the short, very, very short glimpse of what we could get from him. I mean, the dude had 223 yards to the air, 200 yards for the air. That's kind of what you expect, right? That's like, okay, cool. What did he do rushing? Thank you for asking, Josh. He had 40 on the ground, 35 on the ground, 3 total touchdowns in 2 games on the ground. I mean,
same thing that makes Jalen Hurts special.
Exactly.
Oh, by the way, the coach?
Shane Steichen. And guess who's
Jalen
there to stay?
Hurts is, Shane Steichen.
And who fell off after Shane Steichen left?
Jalen Hurts.
From a fantasy standpoint, Jalen Hurts has still been good. It's not what I'm saying. But that offense we've seen has struggled because Shane Steichen's mind was the one that was the engine that was keeping that thing going.
Yeah.
And with Richardson being attached to Shane Steichen, look at what Gardner Minshew's doing.
Yeah.
Like
fantasy relevant.
Fantasy relevant because that team has fantasy relevant options because Shane Steichen. So Anthony Richardson coming back, I'm convinced that if Shane Steichen can do it with Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson's going to pick up right where he left off. Now, he might have some dust at the beginning of the season.
Totally.
I'm looking to buy him. If I can do that, if you can get any sort of discount in the offseason because of injury concerns, because of he's just been out, people aren't as high on him, whatever, go buy Anthony Richardson.
The hype train changes quickly. And I think it's just a player hasn't been talked about.
I just traded away Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, you got a haul.
I did. I got a good trade.
Yeah, I was surprised because I think you can get it's really hard to hold picks or players for a very, very long period of time and be committed to it. And to be patient with an Anthony Richardson, especially for a competing team or a team that was in the mix.
I had my window too. That was
the other thing. You were going into a playoff push.
Mm-hmm.
But Anthony Richardson is the quarterback 8 on keep trade cut. Does he still belong that high, even though he missed a full season and we still don't really know what he is? And then you have a Caleb Williams and a Drake May coming into an NFL. As soon as they come into the NFL, are they going to outrank Anthony Richardson on people's minds for the keep trade cut?
In people's minds?
Yes.
Yes.
So that screams Anthony Richardson is a buy.
To me. Yes. If you're going to buy him, if you have the patience, wait until after the draft or as it gets closer to draft season. Because once you see Drake May land on whatever, let's say that he goes to Washington or Caleb Williams goes to Washington, whoever goes there or to a favorable landing spot.
Caleb Williams in Chicago or Anthony Richardson?
Anthony Richardson.
Okay. Drake May in, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to give you 2. Seattle, Drake May or Anthony Richardson?
I still.
See, that's a good landing spot, right?
Yeah, you're playing with my heart there.
Yeah.
I would probably. I'd probably go. That's tough. That's tough. You're gonna make me choose. I would probably go Richardson, Anthony Richardson.
Okay, well that answers the question. Drake May on the Commanders. You're gonna go Richardson.
Yeah, I mean Seattle.
I would maybe go Drake May in Seattle.
I may. In the moment, I'm going Anthony Richardson.
As of today,
today.
Because you also need to hear how he's rehabbing. You need all the hype that's going to mislead us in the offseason. Yes. Before we move off of Richardson, one thing I'll say in defense of him, the biggest question coming into the regular NFL season was his accuracy issues. On the limited games he played, he was getting the ball. He showed a cannon of an arm, and he didn't have the accuracy issues that he had in the preseason. And so
thank you.
I actually do think he's a much safer pick.
He's going to have those throws, though. Like, that's the thing is you're going to have those errant throws, especially next year because he missed this season. But I think that fantasy-wise, you're not relying on him to throw for, like, C.J. Stroud, 300 plus yards.
No, you don't need him to. I mean,
you don't need him to.
The rush, especially in a 4-point touchdown league, Anthony Richardson is a cheat code because of the rushing upside. And specifically, I mean, look at what Jalen Hurts is doing. He's got 15 touchdowns rushing on the season. If Jalen Hurts can do that in a Shane Steichen-designed offense, because essentially I think Philadelphia is running a very similar scheme, just not play called as well.
Brian Johnson's just like, okay, well, what does Steichen do?
Exactly. So, and you see what Steichen's done with that offense. Mm-hmm. Michael Pittman, it's plenty of weapons. The sky truly is the limit for Richardson for fantasy purposes. Mm-hmm. Moving on to a player that's been incredible for fantasy purposes, the 104. It's important to talk about who we didn't mention this. The 102 in our cartel draft, it's just crazy how time changed, was Bryce Young. Funny who picked that person. Anthony Richardson was the 103 in the actual draft. He remains the 103 in our redraft. The actual 104 in our draft was CJ Stroud. This is how far CJ Stroud slipped. And at the time, I thought that was a decent, it made sense. You could have taken those guys in any order. But Puka Nakua was nowhere near the first round. And to me, that is easily the 104. The only difference I would have is maybe in a tight end premium league, Sam Laporta would be in this spot.
104 Puka Nakua.
Absolutely, dude. We're talking about the wide receiver 9 on Keep Trade Cut, wide receiver 7
Chris last
on the
episode
season.
had your bromance.
Listen, let me ask you this question. Do you know, this is actually, I didn't know this. I genuinely thought Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase had the rookie receiving record, and certainly for fantasy, they've held some records that Puka is breaking. But do you know what the rookie wide receiver yards record is and who holds it?
I don't know what it is, but I'm pretty sure, isn't it held by Justin Jefferson?
It's not, actually.
Calvin Johnson?
Nope.
Who was it held by?
This guy named Bill Groman from 1960, 1,473. Bro, that's 1,400 yards in like, what, a 12-game season or whatever they were doing in 1960? Man was cooking. Puka needs 73.5 yards over the next per game for the next 2 games, and he will break that record. What Puka is doing is record breaking. Like
what he's doing this season is undeniable. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Once again, I think the question of is this drafting going back in time and you get the full season, or what is he moving forward is really important, because we've talked at length. This has been a hot debate. What is Matthew Stafford's long-term health and future? Where are the Rams going? Chris and I talked a lot about it last episode. I believe the Rams are only going to get better. They get their first round pick since 2016 this next year. They've played good down the stretch. They're fighting for a wild card spot. Yeah, the credit card debt, they've paid it off. It's been 2 really rough seasons and not a lot of personnel they can add because they won a Super Bowl by, you take the picks, give us Jalen Ramsey, give us Von Miller, all these different things. I think Puka's situation can only get better. And Sean McVay is, to me, the most important piece. He has made fantasy greatness happen for a long, long period of time, whether it was Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, whether it was Todd Gurley. He's always known how to utilize talent. Kyron Williams now. Puka is a talent, and I believe he belongs at the 104. I do think he can be a dynasty wide receiver 1, though if you have concerns because he's not the traditional physical alpha wide receiver, I understand, but that's just a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think personally he deserves to be 104. I think that, and I understand everything that he's done this season. I want to say, I respect everything that he's done this season.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. He's done amazing things. He's had an incredible season. And I think I've said this. I think he's a good wide receiver. I don't think he's a great wide receiver. I think he's a very good wide receiver. And the stars aligned for him this season. He did a great job. Awesome. Way to go, Puka Nakua.
The 2 C's. I'm going to get a jersey with 2 C's, Puka Nakua.
2 C's on the Puka Nakua.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and we talked about this earlier off air, one of the things for me with Puka Nakua is there's so many things that are working in his favor. Talked about Cooper Kupp being on the field with him. Talked about Stafford being his quarterback. Talked about just different things that I don't know are super long-term things that I'm a little bit concerned about. I don't know, and talking about how we're doing this draft, the way that I did this draft at least is I'm taking consideration
probably the way you should do this draft. The more helpful way is moving forward, just re-ranking
based off of what they've done moving forward.
Yeah,
and so I wouldn't have him this high. Would he be in the first round? Absolutely. It's undeniable what he's done. He needs to be in the first round above a lot of the wide receivers. Definitely QJ. Definitely above all these guys that flopped, right? But I'm just concerned. There's a lot of variables that I think could change, and I don't know.
What are those variables? Because he was good with the argument against Puka was that Cooper Kupp is coming back and is going to take all the targets.
Yeah,
then fair. Cooper Kupp comes back and it's like, oh, he's actually really relevant with Cooper Kupp on the field. Now you're saying, well, if Cooper Kupp leaves, it's a negative for Puka?
Yeah, well, yes, I do. I do think that. And I understand that he's produced. So sure, you could say that one's already been proven wrong. The biggest thing for me, and it always has been, is Matthew Stafford. Okay. I understand that Sean McVay is the magic that makes things happen there. He did it with Jared Goff, which maybe it wasn't. I don't think Jared Goff was as bad as people think. I don't know why.
No, I think Jared Goff is good.
A Super Bowl winning quarter.
Clearly he got to the Super Bowl and didn't win the Super Bowl,
but he didn't win.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, Jared Goff wasn't awful.
No.
So Stafford, yes, may have been an upgrade just from an experience and NFL quarterback standpoint.
Maybe. I think Stafford's an unbelievable. He doesn't get enough credit. I'm actually going to help your argument by saying Stafford's an unbelievable
absolutely.
quarterback.
I think I said it the last episode that I was on, which, by the way, I haven't been on an episode with you in like,
it's been a long time.
Seems like months.
But it hasn't been episodes so much as the gaps. We've been doing this twice a week.
Correct.
I mean, it's been a long season, but
yes.
it's been a blessed one.
Absolutely.
A blessed season it has been.
I think I said on a few episodes back that Matthew Stafford is a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Oh, no
question. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback, unquestioned. When he leaves, I just don't know if Puka Nakua, Kenny Galladay is the guy that I brought up. If Puka Nakua can sustain, because Matthew Stafford is also one of those truck quarterbacks.
You know, if you had told me Julian Edelman wasn't going to get Tom Brady for 4 years and was going to get Matt Castle, there was injury or Tom Brady wasn't there. I mean, there are those players that it's like, hey, it's just a perfect pairing. And I can see a little bit of an argument there with Puka. That being said, if McVay is the head coach and an offensive-minded one, I have faith.
Yeah.
I think it's somewhere in the middle, but Puka, to me, certainly belongs at the 104. The 105 in the actual draft was Jahmyr Gibbs. Great pick, whoever took that guy. Who do you have going in the 105 in the redraft?
Again, a guy that I would take over Puka Nakua. And rightly so for me would be 104, Bijan Robinson. Is the almighty Bijan Robinson. Everyone's 101 coming into the offseason. Everyone's generational running back. And
the amount of generational that got thrown around.
Well, listen, I don't know that I would consider him generational. I understand the argument for him being generational. I think he's an incredible running back. And when he gets the ball, you see how good he is.
Mm-hmm.
He just went to the Falcons. It was just the hand that he was dealt. I think that he would have the same success Jahmyr Gibbs has in that offense, in the Lions offense.
Yeah, sure.
I do.
Maybe better.
I do. But the reality is he's
know.
not in Detroit. Exactly. We will never know. He's not in Detroit. So I think he belongs here because he's still one of the best players that came out of the draft. He's still RB12, like we talked
still
about.
Passes the eye test on certain plays.
Still passes the eye test. When he gets the ball, he's still elusive. I don't think he's a bad running back. He just happens to have a Tyler Algier problem, which could go away at any point. It really could. And if that does happen, Arthur Smith realizes his job is actually on the line, or they get a new offensive coordinator, whatever that looks like. I think Bijan Robinson, if he's getting he's even been doing it on low efficiency. I mean, he hasn't been getting every single carry in that offense, and he's still been producing as the RB12.
Here's my issue with Bijan. And I mean, I think he has an Arthur Smith issue more than he has a Tyler Algier issue because, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs has a much better back. You know, Jahmyr Gibbs is the 1B or the 1A, depending on any given day of the week with David Montgomery. It's the way Bijan is used is the offense as a whole. The Falcons offense is not a top 15 offense, you know, in the league. And I don't see how it gets better unless Justin Fields goes there.
Well, no, it's not even
my
that.
issue with Bijan is the lack of winning weeks. You know, most of his good weeks are, you know, RB11, RB12, RB10, or he's on RB20. Only one time has he been a top 5 RB on the season. And that was with 2 touchdowns, 1 through the air, 1 on the ground. The utilization is also incredibly confusing. Now, if you throw out the sick game and just count that as an injured game, maybe it's a more understandable season. But I think the concern I have with Bijan is also look at how they've ruined our boy Kyle Pitts. Look at how they've ruined our boy Drake London.
That is the problem.
Those guys aren't ruined like completely. There's this like, oh no, they're still interesting. I still believe that he passes the eye test. But we've seen for multiple years how Arthur Smith has treated highly drafted offensive rookies. Until Arthur Smith is gone, I don't have hope.
You don't have to convince me. I don't think he's the 101. I don't think he should have been the 101. I haven't thought he's been the 101. I think this is the right spot for him, right in the front middle of that first round. I don't see why you would not take a shot on the talent of Bijan Robinson can win out at any moment. At any moment, and Tyler Algier can be gone, and Bijan is the guy. Like at any moment.
But even if he is the guy, and Arthur Smith is still the head coach, Cordell Patterson will get touches. They'll bring in another guy.
Sure. I'm betting on talent and the efficiency. I mean, he still has 4.6 yards a carry. Like, I think that's efficiency-wise, that's great. That's fine. I still think
make the same argument. Dial back 2 years and say Kyle Pitts. Do you see my point?
No, I never was on a Kyle Pitts kick.
You liked Kyle Pitts. I liked Kyle Pitts.
I did not like Kyle Pitts as
Okay, now I'm angry. You literally talked me into taking him in a redraft league. That was my highest buy-in league. You were like Kyle Pitts in like the 4th round. You're like, bro, it's gonna be great. I'm like, you know what? You're right. My most
because Mariota got 100%.
Right.
I remember that.
And
sometimes you got to remind me.
Yeah,
but
not as like a rookie for dynasty purposes. I understand
correct.
that.
It's a little different context. If you're doing a redraft league, of course, I'm gonna be like, take a shot on Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts
dynasty
was the one.
I'm not trading first
4 in the NFL draft.
I get it. It's an Arthur Smith problem. It really is. To me, Bijan Robinson is still.
All I'm saying is the
top 5 dynasty RB. I don't think.
I understand. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying you're not going to go wrong. Like we're seeing the floor, all that. But believing that the talent will win out. What if it just doesn't? What if talent doesn't matter to Arthur Smith and he's able to keep his job because they win a bad NFC South, and he retains the rights and the talent just never wins out and it's always weird.
That's great. I'll take the RB12 at 105. Like that's the thing. It's like
All
that's
right.
what I'm saying. Like the RB12 on the season. Like this is the worst case scenario.
Yeah,
Like
it's
worst
pretty
case,
bad.
it's literally the worst case scenario, and he finishes RB12, bro. There's something to be said about that, and it's fine. He's 21 years old. Arthur Smith isn't going to make it to like.
You hope not, but that's a weak division.
Yeah,
Here's
he's not going
why-
to last more than 2 seasons max.
Moving on to the next player. Here's why I don't believe he belongs at the 105. Because when you can get a positional advantage in their rookie year in Sam Laporta, who is already the tight end one in keep trade cut, this is one of the few times I agree.
Bro, go ahead.
In a tight end premium league, unquestioned, he's higher on this list.
Sure.
The thing I love about Sam Laporta is that I'll admit most of his production, or the reason it's been such a great year, and he's the tight end one on a keep trade cut. By the way, also the tight end one on season mode. I don't know if Kelsey's going to beat him out, but it's close. It's been a lot of touchdowns, but Sam Laporta is doing this as the second or maybe the third read in an offense. That speaks to how good the Lions have been. He's incredibly versatile. We never see rookie tight ends do this, and Sam Laporta has been all-time. I think when you get a positional advantage like this, someone who can score 3 touchdowns on a week, which he just did 2 weeks ago in your the first week of fantasy playoffs, just incredible. It's hard to find good tight ends. It's hard to find good young tight ends. Sam Laporta is going to, based on what he did in his rookie season alone, his resale value for the next 5 years is going to be astronomical. It is going to be really hard for a player that young to have accomplished what he already has for him to lose value because tight ends last such a long time. I think Sam Laporta can continue to dominate with the Lions, and even if the touchdowns go down, I think they're going to drop even more plays for him next year because he's going to be a more critical part of the offense. Sam Laporta, the sky is the limit. The future is bright. He, to me, is the correct 106, not Jackson Smith-Njigba, who was the actual 106 in the draft that we pulled. Even though JSN, very talented player, still in the first round. We'll talk about him later. Sam Laporta, tight end 1. I'm taking him at the 106. I can make an argument for him at the 104.
I know. Did you draft? No, because it's not a premium.
No, tight end premium, he belongs.
So that's where I have
he
an
belongs
issue.
in the 102, 103.
I still think Sam Laporta belongs in the first round, but I don't think I take him this early. But I like Sam Laporta. I really do. There's just a few wide receivers that I would take before him and possibly another quarterback that I would take before him. But I just think Sam Laporta is a great asset to have. But I think if you waited till the back end of the first round, you could probably still get him there. Because where did he go in our draft? Let me actually have it up right here.
Mid-second.
207.
Yeah.
Went to 207. But I mean, you're not finding a tight end at the 207 very often that has 100 targets on the season, 700 yards, and 9 touchdowns.
You're not finding any rookie tight end that's scoring the way Sam Laporta is.
I mean, so that's the thing that's not sticky is scoring. That could disappear
in terms of the 9 touchdowns. Because
Yes.
here's what I'll say: the yardage does not that it concerns me. It's humbling to say, okay, this guy has built his fantasy season off of touchdowns, which aren't sticky, like you said. But even 700 yards for a rookie is great. He'll probably finish the season with 800.
But I don't want to argue against Laporta because I think Laporta is a great player, and I think he belongs in this first round. And I probably would.
You wouldn't take him at the 106?
I don't think so. I think anywhere between 106 to 108. I couldn't argue. Like I really couldn't. I understand taking him with 106. I probably wouldn't have, but it's a fair value for him because of what he's done. I'm just nervous about, is Jared Goff there next year?
Yeah, if it's 703, how are you really stoked with him, or would you rather have a David Njoku?
The touchdowns aren't sticky, but he's shown that he's good enough to play the tight end position in the NFL as a rookie. And we talked about this pretty much all season ad nauseum. Rookie tight ends do not break out.
No, and
they just don't break out, and he has. So you have to have some sort of value to that. So I agree with that. I do.
This next one. This is going to be the most contentious. I hate what you've done here. I hate how you're hurting the credibility of the show. But hey, you know what? This is an exchange,
this is
right?
a Superflex draft, by the way.
It is Superflex for sure. It's terrible. This is wrong.
Thank you. I'll take it from here.
It is your pick.
He's gonna go.
The 107, the actual 107.
It's about how terrible it is.
Was as much of a bust as this pick is. In Quentin Johnston, QJ, who doesn't belong in the first round, may not belong in the second round in a rookie redraft. But QJ was taken on the 107 on the promise of Justin Herbert, elevating him to greatness, and he did nothing with it.
And this next guy that I'm taking here at the 107 is, drumroll please, Bryce Young.
That was a strange drum roll. But
I
continue.
couldn't bang on the table because I get in trouble for that.
You pound the table far too often.
I do. I just make statements.
Bryce Young.
Bryce Young. I understand he's probably slipped to the back of the first, sometimes second round for a lot of people if they were to redo drafts. And I get it. But the thing about Bryce Young to me is I can't even use – I literally was pulling up stats to try to justify my argument. And I was like, nope. So this is going to be purely intuitive. And I apologize for those of you that are sensory people that are super logical, need stats and to justify.
Yeah.
But listen to me for a second. Just listen to me for a second. Bryce Young is a quarterback that if you watched him play, which not very many people watch Carolina games because they're pretty painful, but if you watched him play,
there's no one in the stands. It went
45,
viral.
What was like 45 cents a ticket or something like that?
It was disgusting. No one's there.
One of our best friends is a Panthers fan, and I pray for him. Like that is rough. Like
it's
if
terrible,
you're basically
man.
handing out free tickets, rough. I digress. Bryce Young was a quarterback that was playing with zero confidence. You look at him playing, the dude just like, he looks so, I don't even know, like just defeated the entire season. Literally week 1 he came out, was a little optimistic, still didn't play great. And then the thing that I saw last game against the Packers, he finally looked like he was playing F-it football.
Yeah.
He really did. And it wasn't like this, I don't care, but it was like let me have a little bit.
Let me cut it loose. Let me trust my instincts.
What is there to lose? Like, honestly, what is there to lose? Let me trust my instincts. Because that's what he is. He's a very cognitive quarterback, but he's very instinctual. And a lot of what he did in college was instinctual. And we talked about it when we were talking about generational players. The people that have that instinct and can actually incorporate it into their game, that's what makes them different. And
I want to pause here and give you some flowers here because I think it's important. We don't talk enough about this in fantasy is like the people who've actually played football, things like that. I don't have any real football career to speak of. I didn't even finish my high school career, but played all growing up. It's like a religion to me. But we talked about this just growing up. We played football together. You were a superstar, all district in one of the literally Friday Night Lights, one of the toughest Texas football districts. A lot of NFL level players come out of there, things like that. But we chatted, like I grew up and my dad really instilled in me, like, you do what the coaches tell you. And there was almost like when I would play football in the early years, I was like, okay, whatever coach tells me and nothing else. And I really struggled in the early part of my career because I was too in my head of like, what does the coach want me to do? You always played kind of the opposite of that.
Very instinctual.
Yeah.
And how I wanted to play the game.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely a coaching aspect of it because a lot of my argument against Justin Fields was he's not getting coaching.
Yeah.
Like there's an aspect of that I think there's a balance of an instinctual talented player versus coaching that's needed to help the player progress.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm no psychiatrist, and I know I sound like I'm going on a tangent, but specifically for Bryce Young, it's not a statistical argument. Like you cannot look at the stats because no one in Carolina, aside from Adam Thielen, a few games here and there, has had a statistically good season.
Chuba Hubbard.
Chuba Hubbard has looked better. Even statistically, it doesn't look great because it wasn't a full season. It's been spurts.
In the valley of the blind, a one-eyed man is king, and it's so bad you're looking for.
Is that what it says? Like when you start up Clash of Clans, is that the quote that the value of a man is?
You're gonna find.
I just picture a guy in a cloak saying, "What did you say? The value of
which
man."
One of us? Remind the listeners, which one of us has been to a Renaissance fair?
Oh,
in full costume.
Me.
Yeah.
Renaissance fair. Highly
just
recommend.
Freudian slip. You're just projecting all of this onto me. Like,
anyways, Bryce Young is, to me, I don't think you should be out on him. And if you have him, I'm holding on to him because I'm interested to see what his last 2 games of the season look like because there's nothing for him to lose. Like, they're not going to, I mean, sure, they could, in theory, go get a Russell Wilson. That would be very dumb of them. But, like, they could go do something like, but they just spent literally a fortune in capital to go get. They gave up DJ Moore. They gave up all these things. There was nothing around him. Unfortunately, Jonathan Mingo, who we'll talk about later, hasn't panned out. DJ Chark had a good game last game. There's just like, who are these guys?
Well, the head coach got fired. Josh
Frank Reich
McCown
was a lot of the problem.
Well, who knows? It's hard to know because you didn't even give it a full season. Frank Reich wasn't helping him, but David Tepper over tinkering, the weekly meetings.
Well, you just didn't see Bryce Young have confidence. That's what I'm saying. Like a head coach should bring confidence.
Getting back to my old timey story of us playing football, but something I admired about you, something we talked about, is you always said part of the reason you had success early on. I mean, you got elevated to play varsity in a district your junior year, which most guys didn't get to do just because of we played with a lot of Tongans and they were like
Massive.
we had seriously like the average lineman was
Incredibly
260.
talented.
Yeah, incredible football players, just incredible football culture. You succeeded early because you didn't listen to what the coaches told you. And at the corner position, you have to play instinctual. So for you, and also flirted with a serious college career in football as well, that's when you always talk about film. You talk about instinct. You're looking for someone who's playing with confidence and with instinct. Whereas I'm just looking a little bit more at the raw data. Yeah, because the raw data for Bryce Young does not belong.
It looks terrible. But like I said, the quarterback I saw against Green Bay, because I wasn't high on Bryce Young. Keep in mind, he was my QB3. He was my QB3, so this is a sweet spot for him where he should have gone originally. He was my QB3 coming out, but I think he can still be good. I want to see him. I want to see him actually put it together, get some weapons around him. Like the poor guy, dude. Chuba Hubbard's his running back. Adam Thielen's his wide receiver 1.
Yeah, but
Tommy Trumbull's his tight end. Like Frank Reich gets fired midseason.
They don't have their first round pick this year, which is the 101.
But this is a deep wide receiver class. They can find someone later on the draft, go to free agency. They need to just build around.
Here's my issue:
a coach that can give him confidence.
I love the take. I love the entire summary you just gave. I think all of that's really good. I hate the 107. I hate the 107. Why are you still paying premium prices for a crap product?
Premium prices. We're in the middle of the first round. You're not the rest of the guys that we're about to read off. I'm not. I'd rather have a Bryce Young who can be an upside. He has the upside to be a top 15 QB.
That doesn't mean anything.
Absolutely.
Kenny Pickett can be a top 15 QB.
No, he cannot.
Well,
that's been ruled out.
Maybe.
At the beginning of the season.
No, I know, but like Bryce Young, you would hope for Daniel Jones level careers of fantasy relevance at this point. Bryce Young can be fine for NFL, but whether or not he'll ever be fantasy relevant, I think is a much harder question to answer. Well, much harder to give a yes to, because the situation's horrible. Like you're like, yeah, maybe he can turn into something. How long before a quarterback develops not only for the NFL to win games, but to also be fantasy relevant?
It's been 1 year. Trevor Lawrence did the same exact thing, and he went through the same exact coaching situation. Not exact; it was a little rougher culturally.
Yeah, I guess
it's just you've got to get. It's his rookie year. I'm not, and Frank Reich getting fired shows me.
With Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence isn't fantasy relevant, huh?
He has been.
He's had flashes.
He's a top right now. He's a top 10 quarterback on KTC.
I don't think he should be.
Oh, sure,
I've gone on record with that.
But you're talking about like if he can be top 10 based off of the success that he's had, Bryce Young can be top 15 easily.
If he flashes it all next season, I'm sure he'll skyrocket.
Like I said, to me, the firing of Frank Reich shows there was no confidence instilled in Bryce Young, and they don't have confidence that he was the one to develop Bryce Young. So that's a problem.
But we've talked about David Tepper being a strange owner for all the season. Here's what I'm saying, and this is something we're debating. You've taken guys where you've trusted the talent and the instinctual individual despite very, very bad situations. Mm-hmm. Both Atlanta and even more so Carolina in the worst division in football in the NFC South. Those scare me for fantasy purposes, because if you're not a winning franchise, people don't get to keep their jobs. If you're not a winning franchise, you're just by definition not going to usually produce fantasy goodness. Even remember the Jameis Winston season 30-30. I mean, very rarely do you get these teams that are like throwing the ball like crazy, or they're bad in real life, but they're relevant for fantasy. Bryce Young was irrelevant for both. And so
this is what I'll say. I've said this to you before. Mm-hmm. This is, listen to me, guys, that those of you that are diehard fantasy players, dynasty players, if you get caught watching points, you completely miss out on potential.
No, don't chase. Don't simply chase.
Don't
points.
Chase points. Don't watch points. If you go through your phone and you're looking at Sleeper and you're scrolling and you see this player did 15 points, 20 points, like whatever that is, or if on the opposite end, Bryce Young 6 points, 4 points, 6 points, whatever it looks like for him, don't get caught watching points. Watch film. If there's a player, have a conviction on him. Like for me, if you watch the game and you're like, this player just sucks, then maybe they just suck. Don't waste your time. But if you see the potential and you can buy low, if you were the owner of Bryce Young, I would be going to you, and if I offered you a first for him,
just offer me the player you passed up on, because the next guy on the list, Jordan Addison, he was the 108 in the real draft. He's to me the 108 here. If I could get
straight up.
Once again, this comes down to roster construction, right? I would much rather get Jordan Addison in return and trust Joe Flacco and just figure it out at the quarterback position. The reality is, in Dynasty, here's the great news. Maybe you're not the Carolina Panthers. You didn't move up and spend your first round pick in this coming year in 2024 to go get him, and you can actually take a quarterback. I would rather re-roll, because I lost all season if I was trusting Bryce Young as my quarterback too. Mm-hmm. I'd rather take a quarterback and then get another good wide receiver who I can trust. Jordan Addison is that wide receiver. On Keep Trade Cut, he's the wide receiver 12. I think that's too high, but I don't think he can fall too low. He is going to be, in my opinion, a perennial wide receiver 2. This is Devontae Smith light. I would say light. Devontae Smith, Heisman winner. Let's show some respect.
Yes.
Jordan Addison, great player, connected to a much better wide receiver. But when that wide receiver is injured or missed time, Jordan Addison proved he can absolutely carry the load. Here's what I love the most about him. He's already had winning weeks. He's had 2 weeks this season already where he's been the wide receiver 1 on the week in totality. That's awesome. You love to see that from a wide receiver 2. He's young and he's connected to a great coach and a great offense. I don't care who they put at quarterback. We've seen him be relevant with Josh Dobbs. We've seen him be relevant with Nick Mullins. We've seen him be very relevant with Kirk Cousins.
I think he trickled off a little bit there.
In terms of consistency, but the
even
flashes,
with Justin Jefferson gone.
Yeah, but with Joshua Dobbs, man, he still had crazy good games. I mean, let me just pull up his game log for you real quick because that's pretty impressive. He's the wide receiver 22 on the season, so he's already and that's with some injuries. He's already very fantasy relevant. I think he's going to be fantasy relevant for years to come. You can't miss out on what kind of what a special guy that he can be.
I mean, wide receiver 21 is not bad on the season. Obviously, it's still wide receiver 2, and with the questions that they've had at quarterback. But I mean, you look at it
was with Mullins that he had the wide receiver 1 finish with the 111-2, 6 for 111-2.
Yes, and that was the game before Justin Fields. Justin Jefferson was back.
Was he in Cincy? Justin Jefferson not back? I think Jefferson was in there to start.
No, his first game back was last season, or back was last week.
Okay.
And wide receiver last week?
He got injured.
Oh, he did get injured.
That's fair. You can't hold that against him.
He only played 37. But I mean, before that, it was wide receiver 47, 48, 64.
That was the Joshua Dobbs insanity run ending.
I mean, he's only had 3 top 15 finishes.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a wide receiver 16 in there.
Top
wide
15,
receiver 24,
top 15?
wide receiver 17. Top 15, yeah.
Top 15
I mean, but finishing as a wide receiver 2 or better. He had touchdown potential early on, regular season. Listen, he's already the wide receiver 22. He's a great player, connected to a great offense, and Justin Jefferson's going to draw the 1 in coverage. I think he can be a high-end wide receiver 2 for years to come because Devontae Smith, he's an excellent wide receiver. He's connected to A.J. Brown. You don't knock Devontae Smith because A.J. Brown is there. There's always just the upside that if the one misses time, he can go even higher. And not every dynasty roster are you going to get where your wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown. You're going to have wide receiver 2s and 3s. Addison is going to be a high-end wide receiver 2 for years to come. Love the situation.
I'm just giving you a hard time. I agree with you here.
Yeah.
I think this is the pick, Jordan Addison. I mean, he is probably, I think with Justin Jefferson being there, I think that definitely caps his potential, and I don't think he's quite Devontae Smith. I don't think so.
I think he's light. I'd rather have Devontae Smith.
I just want to make sure people understand he's not going to give you Devontae Smith numbers
I think
alongside AJ Brown.
With wide receiver 12 on Keep Trade Cut, that's too high. Wide receiver 16, I'd be like, that makes complete sense.
Wide receiver 12 is pretty high. And
it's not a 1.
That's just based off of
recency bias and
what he's done. And he's a good good wide receiver. He's proven that. He's a great route runner, strong hands, and he can get separation. That's awesome. Alongside Justin Jefferson, and who I would like, this is kind of a side note, who I would like in Minnesota next year?
Who?
Russell Wilson.
I know we've talked about this a little bit. Yeah.
I think, man, if you give him Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, it's an upgraded version of Judy and Cortland Sutton. Judy and Cortland Sutton are literally off-brand, great value.
Kevin O'Connell is a coach I trust. I've seen him make multiple guys really good, so I think he can make Russ great. I hope they resign.
Going back to Addison, though, I don't want to get too far, but I think that would be a great fit. Going back to Addison, I think if he can put together more of what we've seen, he completely disappeared, and that's what concerns me. Even with Justin Jefferson gone, completely disappeared. Now, I write that off a little bit because of the quarterback conundrum with Dobbs.
What was more fun, the Joshua Dobbs 3 weeks of the Pastronaut or the Colorado Buffs being everyone's team in September?
Colorado, definitely.
That was so much fun.
Yeah,
it was
so
are they going to win the national
championship? Are they going to? Yeah. No, that was very short.
It was a good time.
But I like Jordan Addison. I think he was my wide receiver 2 coming into this. Wide receiver 2, yeah. I had him and JSN at the top, and then the next guy behind him. But Jordan Addison's a great wide receiver. I think he's a perennial wide receiver 2, and I think that's kind of where he'll live. I think the wide receiver 15, 16 value is right, but I think I don't think he'll finish as a wide receiver 1. Like I said, like a Devontae Smith.
It would take an injury. Or a crazy touchdown season.
Injury or something like that to happen. I just don't see it. So right here at the 108, is that where we're at? 108 is where I would take him. Who I would probably take over him. I know this is bold because right now he's wide receiver 30.
I don't hate it.
Jordan Addison's wide receiver 21. Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers coming in at 109 for me.
Jeez.
Zay Flowers.
He was our actual 109 as well.
Oh. He was our actual 109.
Yeah.
That's right.
Are you changing your answer here?
Let's pause. Hold on. I thought I saw. Oh, shoot.
We see. This is fun. No, we're going to keep rolling. No, this is great.
Bad.
This is so real.
That's my bad.
When you get to the 107 or higher, we argued about this.
We did.
And I changed my answers 2 to 3 times. Your actual answer, the actual 109 was Zay Flowers. And I thought you went back and forth on this. You flip-flopped on this. The answer you put into the show doc was actually
Tank Dell.
You would actually take Tank Dell over Zay Flowers at this point, even though
I would.
Are you switching back to Zay Flowers or are you tempted?
I'm tempted. I'm literally going back and forth now who I would take. No, I think I would still take Tank Dell because he's attached to CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Lamar Jackson also a phenomenal
MVP
quarterback. Arguably the MVP this season.
Yep.
But I'm still taking Tank Dell.
For fantasy purposes.
For fantasy purposes, I'm taking Tank Dell. And I just think Tank Dell, if you were early on the draft process last offseason, you paid attention to the Senior Bowl. If any report that was coming out of the Senior Bowl, you basically heard this guy's unguardable.
Yep.
Like Tank Dell is small but mighty. You cannot guard him. He even left him and Puka Nakua both. They both left the combine or the Senior Bowl early. And DBs were this is reports that I read and I've listened to that came out of the Senior Bowl last year. DBs were literally like going back in the line so they didn't have to cover Tank Dell. Jeez, they didn't want to line up against him because
put on bad tape and
put on bad. It's their
stock.
time, right? Yeah. The Senior Bowl is where they go to show out. So to me, Tank Dell is an elite player and he's just different. The broken fibula, I understand it's a bummer. He's tiny. He shouldn't have been in the trenches blocking. I don't know why they had him that
almost like a crackback. It made no sense.
The most frustrating play where you're like, why is the 5'9", 150 pound, maybe 160 pounds soaking wet?
Okay.
Soaking wet. Why is he in the trenches? I'm not worried about the injury. He's going to come back and he's still attached to CJ Stroud. And the dude is a burner. He's an elite route runner that can separate no matter the size. Size does not matter in this instance. He's going to be able to separate. He's going to be able to make plays down the field, and CJ Stroud is going to be able to get it to him. So as much as it breaks my heart, I think I would take him over Zay Flowers.
Who was your guy pre-draft? You love Zay Flowers.
I still do. I still love Zay Flowers. I'm worried about
this is the first time
a little bit, but yes,
in this show where I feel like you've taken the right situation over a player you just love, because I completely agree. Tank Dell could be higher. You could make an argument for Tank Dell at the 106. I think the only thing that's holding him back is we didn't get to see a full season of it. And his injury, it stinks. And I don't think it creates long-term injury concerns by any means. I mean, a broken fibula is not...
it's a long recovery.
But it's not like a common... It's a bone, not an Achilles. Right?
Bone's gonna
but I think recency bias, CJ Stroud also slowing down. But what we saw with him and CJ Stroud is enough of a sample size to make me trust this combo for a long period of time. The other thing I like about Tank Dell is he profiles as he could be the second read. You can have Nico Collins there. They can bring in another weapon. I think that Tank Dell's role is more than secure. And I think most importantly, CJ Stroud asked for him in the draft process. I think that's so crucial. It's the Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp. They're getting breakfast together kind of connection. I love...
He showed it like immediately. As soon as Tank Dell came on the scene, like CJ Stroud, that's his guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like and you saw it in targets. You saw it just downfield. How many times was Tank Dell just wide open downfield? Like you're like, how does this guy
every other play
literally just get wide open downfield? And he gets chunk plays. So, I mean, I'm excited to see Tank Dell come back. And I think there's no question that he should be a top 10 dynasty, or sorry, top 15 dynasty wide receiver. Top 10, no.
He's just like Jordan Addison. Like, this is a wide receiver 2 you're stoked about for years to come because he could mess around one season.
I would take Tank over Jordan Addison. I really would.
You can make that argument. I'm fine with that. If he doesn't get injured, to me,
because he's the one.
Yeah.
They could go get a guy. They can go get a better guy.
No, the reason
they could get like a T. Higgins, a Brandon Ayuk, like
on a per game basis, he's been better than Jordan Addison. Don't get me wrong. I just think that Jordan Addison, Kevin O'Connell's a great coach. It doesn't matter the quarterback. I think there's more upside to Addison. Like we're seeing Tank not at his peak per se, but what he'll be with CJ Stroud is what he's going to be with CJ Stroud, which is a high end wide receiver too. And if he's healthy full season, that's great. But Addison, a little bit better of a resume coming in. That's why I took him there. But I could totally fine if that argument takes place. Moving on to another player, and I'm glad we waited this long to do the rookie redraft, because if we had done the rookie redraft midway through the season, if we had done the rookie redraft, 4 or 5 weeks ago, Devon Achane may have been as high as the 105. I don't know about the 103, but on a per game basis, he was absolutely, in terms of points scored, terrifying. Devon Achane has had an incredible rookie season, mostly done at the beginning of the year in some incredible boom games, but then he was injured for a very, very long time. Week winning upside any given week, high efficiency back. But in recent weeks since he's gotten back, he got banged up a little bit again, and his average points per game has gone down. He's only 4th on the season, not ahead of Christian McCaffrey any longer. Mm-hmm. But Devon Achane is still a great running back. He's the RB6 in keep trade cut, and someone you'd be happy to get at the back of the first round of a draft. Zay Flowers was the 109 we just mentioned. Tank Dell's taken over him. Dalton Kincaid was taken here, who has had a fine rookie season, but I don't think you're going to pass up on the week-winning upside of Devon Achane, and also being connected to a great offensive mind in Mike McDaniels with a great run game long-term. I know Raheem Mostert says he feels 25, but Raheem Mostert probably can't keep going at age 31. And even if they bring in another
I'm surprised
back,
he's stayed healthy all season. Honestly.
It's been crazy.
That's been the big thing.
And the touchdowns, unbelievable. It's been a league winner for people. But Devon Achane, great running back, and you could make an argument for. Listen, I would much rather take Devon Achane over Bryce Young at the 107. I'll say that much. But Tank Dell at the 107, Jordan Addison at the 107.
No. Here. Pause. You're not taking Devon Achane over Bryce Young.
Yeah, when it comes down to roster construction in a super flex league,
you're not taking a. To me, the fact that, and from the mountaintops, I was one of the biggest advocates for Devon Achane coming in, and I still think he's an incredible talent. Mm-hmm. I still think he is a top 12 RB in the league. RB6 is pretty crazy. RB6 to me,
for dynasty purposes,
the fact that he's sustained that the whole season, it's solely off of recency bias.
I think it's going to temper off.
It's going to in the offseason, absolutely going to temper off, because first of all, him being sub 200 pounds is a concern. We talked about that with Jahmyr Gibbs. Mm-hmm. Jahmyr Gibbs, he's proven that hasn't been an issue. Devon Achane hasn't. It has been a major issue for Devon Achane. He got injured, came back, got injured again, and it was a knee injury that continued to hamper him. So the sub 200 pounds really concerns me. And the running back position, Mike McDaniel, if you run a sub 4.4, you can be Izzy Abanikanda and you're going to be Devon Achane in that offense. Like, if I'm being honest,
you're going to have a crazy
Izzy Abanikanda, he had a crazy combine, right?
Yep.
Izzy Abanikanda talking about the rookie running back that's currently on the Jets. If you put him in that Mike McDaniel's offense, is there much of a difference in him and Devon Achane?
I don't know, but Achane's special.
Don't know. Achane is definitely
world-class speed. Yeah.
He's faster he's literally a track star.
But situation.
But I'm talking about situation. He just landed in a perfect situation.
Yeah.
Devon Achane, I don't hate taking him at the back of the first round. Obviously, I don't think that's a bad investment at all. Like I said, he's still a top 12 RB at the moment and still being in that offense. I think Raheem Mostert, you're right, probably sunsets his career after the season. Don't think he's going to sustain this for another season. Definitely not 20-plus touchdowns on a season. But I like Devon Achane here at this pick. Like I said, I liked him coming in.
I flip-flopped on this one too, because it's funny how just a couple games where he falls off of that, like, every time he plays a full game, or every time he's healthy for a full game, he's putting up 30, 40 points. He did taper off, like we've said, and it makes you realize, okay, his long-term value as a running back, is it really worth it over a JSN, who I still have in the first round? But that's the one I was like, JSN probably deserves some credit, even though he hasn't nearly as impressive of a season statistically in the limited work.
Yeah. The most touches that he's gotten in a game, Devon Achane, is 18 and 17.
Yeah.
Which is like, he
scored like 41 points with one of those.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's like we were talking about with Gibbs. Yeah. He doesn't need a lot of touches. What concerns me is that he's not getting a lot of touches and still getting hurt. Like that is a concern to me.
I think the injury is why he fell all the way to the 110, because like I said, if we had done this in week 4, week 5, sky's the limit.
Dude, he's averaging 8 yards a carry.
It's insane.
Which is like,
that's insane.
It's not typically sustainable, but like That's
it's a big enough sample size where it makes you go, okay, wow, that's special. He's
and 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, no, he's
crazy.
He's special player. Moving on to your pick, the guy you got confused with Tank Dale earlier, Mr. Zay Flowers, our actual pick at the 111. This is fun too. Is this the worst? QJ's got to be the worst first round pick taken. That's the biggest bust taken.
Gosh.
This might be second. You can make an argument, in my opinion, for Bryce Young because he was taken at the 102. But Jonathan Mingo was the one at the 111 in the cartel draft.
I got sniped in that draft.
You did?
I was going Jonathan Mingo the whole way.
Well, I like Mingo too, but I don't know. Back at the first, it's kind of what you take your shot.
Sure.
You're obviously not all of them are going to hit. Zay Flowers, your guy, has been a fit. Please explain why.
Yeah, Zay Flowers to me. I mean,
wide receiver 21 on Keep Trade Cut, by the way.
21, wide receiver 30 on the season, like I said earlier. It's been so frustrating to me for Zay Flowers this season. I just think what it seemed like at the beginning of the season was Todd Monken was still getting his grasp on the offense, and they were figuring it out. Lamar was even spotty. Like, Lamar's played great football all season because they're winning games. Fantasy, it hasn't always been great.
Correct.
Their running backs have played phenomenal. I mean, Keaton Mitchell came on the scene. Gus Edwards had that span where he was scoring buku touchdowns. And I just think the wide receivers now, all of a sudden, Odell Beckham starting to come on and feel like vintage Odell Beckham. Like, I don't know what it is, but you see Zay Flowers and you see pops of it, right? And at first, I remember at the beginning of the season, you were like, well, I don't know about Zay Flowers. He's going to be used as a gadget player, blah, 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 all this stuff, which I started to get a little concerned. But the last 4 games that he's played, that they're bye week in this span, he was wide receiver 4 in week 12, had the bye week, wide receiver 7 in week 14, wide receiver 103 against Jacksonville, and then came back and was wide receiver 14.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the season, he was not very good. He was like wide receiver 50 something to begin the season.
Yep.
This last span boosted him up to wide receiver 30, and I think that wide receiver 4, wide receiver 7, wide receiver 14, wide receiver 14 was against San Francisco, who's a good defense. Jacksonville, not a terrible defense. The Rams, not a terrible defense, and then the Chargers, whatever.
That's just a touchdown that's doing that, though.
Sure, but the thing about it to me is, and again, it's going to be how he finishes the season. But this Todd Monken offense is hitting its stride. We saw it against San Francisco.
No, that's fair.
They are hitting their stride. They've got it figured out. Defense. They're getting dialed.
Yeah.
San Francisco's a great defense. Like, they've got it figured out, and I think Zay Flowers is a part of that. And we've gotten
huge part of that.
He's a huge part of that, and we've gotten spoiled with wide receivers breaking out so early, so consistently, and we're like, oh, we just write people out. Even QJ, I'm the first one to dunk on QJ. I understand. I still don't think he's good, but it would be wrong to completely write him off after the season.
There's some value to be had there on a first round drafted rookie wide receiver.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to. I've made my mind up. I'm off of QJ, but I would understand if someone was holding on because of the value.
Oh, I plan on buying him for cheap in leagues if I can.
I'm hanging on to Zay Flowers. What I'm seeing at the end of this season.
Oh, he's not a bust. He's not a bust
I don't
at
think
all.
he's a bust at all. But if you would have looked at the first half of the season, you're like, this dude's not very good. First round wide receiver. I mean, he's all right. I think everyone based off of hype kind of maintained his value, but he wasn't doing anything on the field.
Well, I mean, you remember he was only the 109, right? So he's only fallen to the one. You're taking him here at the 111, right? So he's only moved down 2 spots. I think that's because of the emergence of guys, not because he's been all that disappointing for a rookie.
And I started to say this earlier. I may take him over Jordan Addison.
Yeah,
I really might.
I
genuinely might take him over Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
So I'm still high on Zay Flowers. Maybe too high, but I like Zay Flowers, and I think he's still going to be a solid wide receiver. He has the opportunity because Odell's gone after the season. They're not paying him another $20 million.
And with Mark Andrews having an injury, he'll be 29 next year.
Yeah.
Can you base the offense more off of Mark Andrews? My issue with Zay Flowers. Yeah, he's terrible. My issue with Zay Flowers is kind of the same issue I would have with, where I would agree with you about Puka Nakua to even some extent. Puka Nakua is not 6'4" and going to moss everyone. He's 6'2". He's much bigger than Zay Flowers. But I think about him being a gadget player. A lot of screen passes. The way he was used was kind of weird. Getting handoffs, things like that, like on these jet sweeps. And I get it. You just want to get the guy the ball. Lamar Jackson doesn't seem to make fantasy wide receivers all that relevant. He's never done it in his career. Marquise Brown had that 1 year. We've never really seen it happen. It's always been Mark Andrews. It's always been over the middle of the field. Is it a situation where he's going to be a good NFL wide receiver? Because to me, Zay Flowers passes the eye test. I mean, he makes 100%. Guys miss every single play. He's very fun to watch. But if you're essentially, turning a 3-yard catch into an 8-yard gain, 3 air yards into 8 yards, Yeah, just because you made 3 guys miss, you don't get fantasy points for that. Whereas one deep target, which is not how he's used right now. It's just not high value. Yeah, it's just not high value fantasy touches. And so I think he may always be stuck as a perennial wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside. But he certainly passes the eye test like we talked about. And maybe the offense changes where he gets more high value targets. As his career moves on.
His target share has been for the 4 games that I read off. He had 8, 10, 2, and then 13.
Yeah, no, a lot of targets. And I think his target share on the Ravens is actually he's going to be the target leader at the end of the year based on health because Mark Andrews is gone. But very good player, but I just don't think that the real life and the fantasy match up, just the way he's used. And the other thing, too, is the Ravens punch in so many touchdowns on the ground. And so there's
Gus
just
Edwards.
Yeah, no, right. It kind of stinks. But last but certainly not least, still staying in the top 12, still staying in the first round, Jackson Smith and Jigba, very similar. I'm going to steal your opening from Bryce Young. You can't make a statistical argument. You can make a narrative argument. He's flashed in certain games. You've seen it on the field. He's a very, very talented slot wide receiver. DK Metcalf is the one there, but in 1 to 2 years, I would not be surprised at all if it's a classic 1A, 1B. We've seen what Tyler Lockett has been as the 1A, 1B situation with DK Metcalf. The problem for JSN is that Tyler Lockett is still there and has his games where he gets more targets than JSN. JSN can beat you from the slot. JSN can beat you from outside. He's not getting outside targets. He's mostly getting slot targets. That's what's kept him from fantasy relevance, but it's good to see him healthy and flashing a little bit more as the season kind of ends. I think he had a touchdown against the Cowboys. I think he should be higher than he is, but JSN's a very good player. He's a buy low candidate for me, but Keep Trade Cut still has him as wide receiver 14. I have no problem with that price if you believe in him because he was such an incredible prospect, and nothing with what he's shown on the field in the limited work he's gotten has made me believe he can't be what he was promised to be when the Seahawks drafted him.
Yeah, I think there could be a very dangerous duo there in Seattle. Like DK with the right quarterback, with DK, it is still DK's offense, but I do think the talent of JSN can win out.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see him put it together in the NFL. This is another one of those guys that you're going to have to be patient on. It may be a year 2,
maybe a year 3 breakout.
Yeah. Because even if they get, Geno, man, that's just such a tough. I just don't know that he's the guy.
He's a good bridge quarterback.
He is, but they don't have anyone to bridge to.
What if they brought back Russell Wilson? What if it was a conspiracy? What if Russell Wilson's well, let me go destroy the Broncos for you guys, and I'll come back.
Gosh, like that would be not.
He's lost that locker room. There's no shot.
There's no chance that happens. But the reason why I say it could be a 2-year or year 2, year 3 for JSN, because what if they go and get a Michael Penix Jr. or like, to me that would be the move. If he's there wherever they land in the draft order, they should draft whatever quarterback is there.
What
right?
if they're able to move up and they get Drake May? Like I brought it up already.
If they get Drake May, oh my gosh, bro! Like that would. Wow.
How high
Drake
would
May
JSN
unquestionably would be 101?
How high would you be on JSN then? Would he belong in a wide receiver 12, wide receiver 14 kind of range, or you think he belongs?
I would still wait and see.
Okay.
I would still keep him where he's at and wait and see. Like I'm not one to overreact to those types of things because Drake May could still flop.
Okay.
But yeah, I would still hope. But I like the JSN pick here to round off. It's crazy that he's the back of the first round, but
yeah,
I mean it was a good rookie class. Like looking back on it, hindsight, it was a very solid rookie class.
I think more guys moved because guys broke into the first round rather than guys fell off. This wasn't N'Keal Harry and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Bryce Young to me incredibly disappointing. Most disappointing of the first round picks that we kept in there. QJ is what actually QJ's
Kincaid. He came on for a little bit.
Yeah, but I always said this. Dawson Knox, they had just paid last year. When Dawson Knox was on the field with him.
The hype of other people. Like, no one's taking Laporte over Kincaid.
No, or no one was.
That's what I said.
No, certainly not. And I was one of the biggest advocates of do not take Dalton Kincaid in the first round, especially with Sam Laporta, Michael Mayer in the second. But either way, guys like Puka Nakua, guys like Sam Laporta, guys like Tank Dell, they've been awesome. It's been fun. It's been like, oh, these guys are great. It's fun to have the conversation of Tank Dell versus Jordan Addison versus Zay Flowers because all of them have had very good rookie years. Overall, the class of 2023 has been, I would say, very, very satisfying.
And it's well-rounded because 24 coming up, it's quarterbacks, wide receivers.
And one running back.
Basically one running back and maybe a tight end or two. But it's not very well
excited when we come back for kind of off-season shows to get more into the rookies with you and lean a little bit more on your college football knowledge. That's going to be it for this episode. This next week, season finale, Mike Smith will be back and joining us talking about the future and tons of crazy talk. It'll be so good. It'll be so much fun. But that has been this episode of the Dynasty Exchange. Thank you so much for tuning in for the rookie redraft episode. We will see you on Thursday, January 4th. It's going to be a full week. So, need to mention that as well. But yeah,
Jeez.
Thursday, January 4th. We'll see you back here. Thanks so much.
Peace.